Hello and welcome to the daily chapter reading of Some of It Was Real. No data lost today. And no argument. Chapter 8, Sylvie. That'll be 29 bucks, the delivery guy says as he hands over my sushi order. I gave him 40. Kept the change. Thanks. Big Friday night plans, he asks. Huge, I joe with a nod at my small order. A friend's band is playing at Ray's room. They go on at midnight. You should check it out. He's cute. Shaggy brown hair, hoodie sweatshirt, and cool vibe. Maybe. Halfway down the front walk, he turns and says, call a few friends. Come to the show. Vincent's band is really, really good. I wave and shut the door. There are no friends to call. I'm not a total shut-in. I do go to Soul Cycle and hot yoga, and sometimes I even get a juice with people after class. But once they figure out what I do for a living, I used to say entertainment like everyone else in Los Angeles without giving specifics. But now that I'm getting recognizable, that's harder to pull off. There's a shift. Either they want to know everything about being a psychic, get weird because they think what I do is bullshit, or are afraid I can read their minds. When that happens, I switch class times or studios. I'm currently driving over an hour for my workouts, having exhausted the gyms closed by. That said, I do have needs. In the past, there have been a couple of casual oi friends, but as soon as they started to get serious, I broke it off. I put dinner on my coffee table littered with papers, then sink into the dark blue velvet couch. I live in a 2-bedroom condo in Silver Lake, bought with my own money. Sometimes it's still hard to believe it's mine, considering the basement apartment I shared in San Francisco and the succession of studio apartments I lived in once and moved to Los Angeles. Instead of cheap posters, there were a few paintings decorating my walls and hand-built shelves filled with favorite books. I fund the gently used couch and matching chairs by scouring second-hand shops, and I spend a fortune on the chandelier that hangs over an antique dining table I still need to refinish. Moose pads over, sniffs the sushi, then cocks one brow. You already had dinner, he licks his lips. Fine, but only one. Opening the container, I pluck out a salmon roll and he delicately nips it from my fingers. Satisfied, Moose climbs onto the sofa and rests his sleek head on my lap. Instead of eating, I collect the pages on the coffee table, printouts from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and scan them. Mindy recently lost her husband to suicide and his life insurance refused to pay. Her home is in foreclosure and several of her friends are trying to help. Walter's 13-year-old son Billy is a runaway. I never consider choosing him for the last one-on-one. I don't do kids if I can possibly avoid them. Hal is on a mission to find his high school crush Gertrude. He has only 4 Facebook friends, so it's unlikely. Daryl was one of Thomas's plants. I rip up his page and move on to Darcy. She's the woman I almost chose instead of Theo. Strike that, Thomas. First balcony, row D, seat 37. She's a nurse who took care of her sick father. Now she's overwhelmed with guilt that his final days were filled with pain. She wonders if she should have sped up his death with morphine. I could have helped her. I throw all the pages away, then wrap my arms around Moose's solid bulk. That reporter has already tried and convicted me. If he saw my notes, he'd hold a public execution, I tell Moose. My dog lifts one eyebrow, then returns to snoozing. There are plenty of people I help without knowing a single thing about them. I add on to his fur. Back when I first started, there was no need for any of this. The price of success. Lucas reminds me, I believe in you. But Thomas Holmes doesn't. I find a copy of Theo's Facebook page and skim his last post. I write this with a heavy heart. Katie, my Wi-Fi of 5 years, passed away a week ago despite a valiant fight against the cancer that spread through her brain. She died peacefully. I held her hand, and our cat, Christopher Robin, curled by her side. Katie was loved by her students, trusted by friends, and valued at the shelter where she volunteered. She never met an animal she didn't want to foster. I promised that I'd attempt to connect with Katie through a psychic after she was gone. I don't totally believe it's possible, but I loved Katie enough to try. Beneath the post are photos of Katie and Theo at Disneyland, her head wrapped in a scarf, thin body slumped in a wheelchair in a hospital bed with their cat curled beside her. An old photo from better days of the couple on a hike. Shit. I've put off calling Lucas long enough. I get up to pace while I dial and wait for him to pick up. Hey Sylvie, we're just putting the kiddos to bed. How was the show? We've got a problem. Jiminy fucking cricket, Lucas says when I'm done filling him in. It's rare for him to swear. I slide down the wall, pull my knees closed to my chest, and rest my thumbs against my temples to dull the throbbing. Moose comes over and settles beside me on the polished hickory floor, oblivious to the bomb dropped. Timer set to detonate sometime soon. Shows are tiring. I'm used to that. The heaviness in my body now is a different kind of weariness. I unearth a Tums from my pocket, pick the fluff off, and eat it. Lucas warns his story could kill the TV show. My chest squeezes, but not fast enough to catch my breath before it drops. I didn't know this show mattered so much to me until this moment. Why? It's a chance to reach more people, help them. Or is it to prove to my parents that I've chosen the right path? Or maybe it's just knee-jerk instinct, like a beetle caught on its back, legs thrashing even though it's doomed. Lucas, I'm sorry, I knew something was off. Not your fault, he says, we'll figure out a way. My throat tightens at this show of loyalty. I have a history of getting people on my side. Holly, when I was a lonely kid and in need a best friend, despite the fact that she wanted and didn't get more romantically from me. Danny, I push his wild brown curls and goofy grin away and move on to my audiences, who I also have to win over at every show. Lucas falls under the same category. Right from the start, he worked to promote and protect me. Even the lost guy I dated quickly believed in my abilities. I broke up with him when he mentioned having children someday, and the old nightmare resurfaced. I had the same bad dream throughout my childhood, and it has never faded. It began with me walking up to a door that had peeling gray paint, a battered bronze knob. I knew that door should never be opened, that on the other side monsters loomed, teeth bared, ready to strike. Still, so terrified that I lost control of my bladder, I reached for the knob. Every time I woke, the residue left was the baffling certainty that if I ever had my own child, she'd somehow invite death. Lucas says, Sylvie, you're too quiet. Do not tell me that you're considering that jerk's offer. I see Dad's hands, calloused, weather-worn. They point at my belly button and the contrary tree inside. Thomas doesn't expect me to say yes, I hedge. Still, this is a hurdle, not a cliff. Don't you dare jump. Why bring up my biological parents? This has been what my mind keeps circling back to. That jerk is just trying to rattle you. What did your folks say about them? Not much. Their names and that they were killed in a plane crash. You never asked for more? I asked once. Mom wouldn't talk to me for a week. It took 2 weeks before she'd meet my eyes. Dad said the question made her feel like she wasn't enough. I dropped it. My birth parents were dead. It didn't matter. I hold my breath, wait for Lucas to ask, have your biological parents' spirits ever come forward? Have you searched for them on the other side? He doesn't. Just then a little earthquake, the kind that happens frequently in LA, sloshes the water in my glass on the coffee table. So who the heck is this guy? I lean back and bump my head against the wall. After I kicked him out, I did a search. He's written for the LA Times the past 7 years. Before that, he wrote for the Oregonian, working his way up from arts and leisure to politics to features. The Oregonian? It's the big newspaper in Portland. He started there after he graduated from the University of Oregon. He's not married, lives in Venice Beach. I haven't had time to find much else. I'll hire a private investigator. He'll be on the payroll tonight. We'll find out what's in the Thomas Holmes closet. A black fly with a metallic green body buzzes against the picture window set in the far wall. Beneath the window sits the antique desk I restored. Why do you think my foster file was so empty? Best guess? They're understaffed, disorganized. I can try to find out. Don't bother. I crawl in front of Moose, curl between his front and back legs. Lucas, the article will happen whether or not I agree to an interview. Not if I hire a lawyer, threaten to sue for libel. If the paper prints anything about you, we'll scare the crap out of them. You didn't see the look on the guy's face. For some reason, this is personal. Victor and Doug are big deals. Hundreds of thousands of Twitter followers, best-selling books, Vegas shows. Thomas' article will get traction. You don't know that they'll survive, but this expose will destroy my career. My insides lurch. Then who will I be? I don't want this to hurt your reputation. If the story is going to be published, tell Holmes I fooled you too. Not a chance, Sil. There's a roll of half-finished Tums under the couch. I reach for it, pop two, and chew the lemon-flavored discs into dust. It's a struggle not to gag. Sil, did you ever read Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Cask of Amontillado? Lucas exhales. Maybe in high school. It was one of my mom's favorites. She loved stories with morals. Remind me? It's about an Italian noble named Montresor who decides to seek revenge against Fortunato, a man who insulted him thousands of times. Montresor lures Fortunato into a wine cellar set in the catacombs under his palazzo by offering to let him to try a rare Amontillado wine. He gets Fortunato drunk, chains him to the wall, and seals the niche brick by brick, leaving him to die. You're not Fortunato. Like I said, you didn't see that reporter's face. What I do is incredibly insulting to him. I exhale. Montresor's final line is, in pace requiescat. Lucas asks, rest in peace? That's ironic considering he left Fortunato to suffer asphyxiation. What's the moral? I guess don't insult someone and not expect consequences. You didn't do anything wrong. Lucas, I'm going to that interview. What? Lucas' tone is edged with panic. Another earthquake strikes the city. This time the water in my glass doesn't move. I do believe in you, Lucas quickly explains, but this guy is a journalist. Come on, he'll never take a leap of faith. He'll never understand your process. My skin is too tight, like I've climbed into someone else's version of me. But still, I don't ask the obvious question, the one I constantly avoid. You believe in me, but do you believe I'm a psychic? It doesn't matter. I down another Tums. Please explain why you're willing to take this kind of risk. I drill down to the basic question. Can Lucas make this threat disappear? He might get some information from his private investigator, but I'm a good read of human nature, and Thomas didn't strike me as someone who'd cave to threats or blackmail. This story is too important to him. At most, whatever Lucas' guy digs up can inform but not protect me. And I don't think a newspaper as big as the Los Angeles Times is going to run from a lawsuit either. They've been around that block way too many times. Sylvie, Lucas asks. Hang on, I'm thinking. So the next question is, do I want to do something about Thomas' expose? Yes. Can I? Given my history, it's clear that I have the ability to successfully manipulate. I'm not evil or anything. I just understand how useful it is to get people to think what I want them to, and I'm intuitive enough to figure out their weaknesses and what they really want or need. When all else fails, I'm also skilled at gaining sympathy and creating empathy, two powerful weapons on the path to changing someone's perception and ultimately their mind. Thomas will be tougher than most because he's motivated to be skeptical for the sake of his article and because this story is somehow personal. I need to figure out why. Sylvie, you're making me nervous, Lucas presses. The only options I really have are to either convert Thomas to a believer or capture and kill the story. I can do that. With that, I hang up. Lucas tries me again, but I send his call to voicemail and do a quick search on my laptop, then pull Thomas card out, dial his number. Thomas Holmes speaking. It's Sylvie Young. Is the deal you offered still on the table? Yep. If you're willing to tell me the truth about your past and to do the Oregon show without cheating, and if I prove to you that I'm not a fraud, then I'll keep you in the story that won't condemn you as a con artist, Thomas replies. It strikes me that everything in life always seems to boil down to an origin story. It's a deal if you agree to one detour on the way to Portland. What's that? He asks, his tone wary. My hometown High River is an hour from the city. You wanted to talk to my parents, so we'll drive out, have dinner with them. Time with my parents, especially Mom, will throw Thomas off balance and garner sympathy. Agreed, Thomas says, unable to hide a note of surprise. Meet me at Union Station tomorrow. 2 p.m. Why not fly to Oregon? Moose is too big. Plus, I love the train. It's relaxing. You can interview me during the ride and make sure I don't do any off-limit research. I hear papers rustling. My calendar has your show for next Sunday. Why go a week early? I don't know how long it will take me to get what I want. Don't be late. Heart hammering, I hang up. Don't think I mutter back. I pull out a suitcase and fill half with Moose's food, the other half with clothes for my show, casual stuff, and sneakers for a run. In the back of my closet, there's a ratty blue duffel filled with the clothes I first brought to SF. Hiking boots, jeans, fleece, red down vest, rain shell. They haven't been worn in a long time, but April in High River is variable. It could be sunshine and 60s, or pissing rain and in the 30s. Will the trees be in bloom? My father's deep voice rumbles. We plant pears for our hairs. It's an old saying. Some pear orchidist varieties can take up to 12 years to bear marketable fruit. Their trees are planted for future generations to enjoy and profit. I'm Wes and Hannah Young's only child of their hair, but I left. They probably won't let me in the door. I'm counting on it.